What's going on, everybody? We are back, episode number 19 of the Club and Sub podcast. Per usual, I am wearing the Square hat from squaresandsharps.com. Go check them out. They give 1% of their profits to charity. Good site, have a lot of great merch. Check them out. Not going to be joined by Quinn today. He's from Oregon, and where he lives is basically on fire right now, unfortunately. So, little prayer to Quinn, and hopefully he doesn't lose anything while he's out there. But he'll be back on the show next week, and so we're going to go through with our sport tonight. So, as usual, I'm your host, John Spargarian, MMA. You can find me on Twitter at MMA Fox, Lags at Lags_the Capper, Luke at SWR_betting, and C at C Hansen 10. Do we really want to? I mean, we can recap last week if you guys want. I don't really know.
Briefly, I think, to just try to get it in because of time constraints. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we should skip it.
I would say the biggest thing we could recap is maybe Benefield, just because we were all kind of on that shit show.
Yeah, I lost a good amount. I didn't track it, fortunately, but I lost a good amount of cash on Benefield. That was it. That was a clusterfuck. I don't really know what he was doing. His best chance was go forward, let his hands go, and he just stared at him instead. So, yeah, that sucked. Lags, you got anything on it?
Yeah, I had 2 units straight on him. I had 1 unit on him by knockout, and then I had a little bit in that Lambo parlay. So, not a great night altogether. I kind of just thought, if he's just going to – I don't know really what he was doing. I don't know why he was just decided to stay at range and just eat the kicks on his forearm, eat the kicks right in his stomach, and then just blitz up forward at him. I don't know what kind of game plan he had, but it was playing right into OSP's hands and right into his path to victory. So good on OSP. I really didn't see it coming. I didn't really see it coming from Benefield either. I just didn't really see that lapse in IQ. But it is what it is.
Agreed. Luke, for you.
Yeah, same thing. You guys pretty much touched on it. Just a frustrating performance. If you talk about what's the best way to give OSP his best chance to win, Alonzo Benefield went out there and did that. So it sucks. But real quick plug, guys. First inaugural edition of the COVID cancellation contest is live over on my Twitter right now. We've been talking about it for a while. 25 canceled bets on the year. So why not have a little fun idea out of it? Just head over to my Twitter, essentially pick which one of my 5 bets this week is going to get canceled, and I'll pick one winner and throw him $5. The tweet's on my profile, so head over there, guys, if you want a little free roll on profit from my pain.
You want to share any thoughts on Benefield, or?
Yeah, I lost a bit on Benefield. One of the worst game plans he could have come out there with. I think even honestly, if he was just trying to observe, just like conserve energy, like he could have just clinched him against the cage. I thought that was going to fucking work. Honestly, it did work. I don't know why he was, should have just stuck with that game plan if he was just going to be a bitch about this. But sitting at distance for somebody with like a 7-inch reach is just fucking stupid.
Yeah, it was horrible. We'll spare you the rest of the recap since football's on tonight. Plus, I think it was the first time all of us went in the red on a podcast. So, yeah.
And most of my plays were literally Benefield. So,
yeah, it sucked. It sucked.
Yep.
Hopefully, we bounce back this week. We got some good stuff for you. So, we'll jump right into it. Fun little card we got here. Not a lot of names, but I think there's some potential for some fireworks. We'll start off first fight of the night. We got Justine Kish, Sabina Mazzo. Luke, you want to take this away?
So this is a really interesting one. I did not expect this line to be so wide. I figured Mazzo would be a decent-sized favorite, but definitely not as big as she was. So I actually jumped in on a play, I think either last week or maybe like 5 days ago or so. I got 1 unit on Justine Kish at plus 240. If you've been listening to this podcast for a while now, we talk about it all the time in WMMA. Volume, output, aggression is what wins fights, and that's exactly what Justine Kish has here. She's definitely not the more technical fighter. I would still say Sabina Mazzo is the better fighter, but it's one of these situations where I don't think the better fighter always wins, and you're giving me less than 30% indication on a girl who I know is going to come forward. She's going to eat some shots, but that's just always her style, and she's going to dish 2, 3, 4 more back in return, who's always going to be going forward, looking better optically in the eyes of the judges, and a girl in Mazzo who kind of just needs, in my opinion, that pretty range type fight, assuming she's not going to come in and wrestle like she did Dobson, but that's proven to not be difficult for anybody to do. Ultimately, my point is I think this is a competitive fight at a bare minimum, unless Kish gets head kicked or something like that and knocked out. I think she makes this competitive and maybe loses a split decision or whatnot. But once again, I'm trying to focus more on optics going forward recently. And I think what she's going to be is going to optically look better in the eyes of the judges. So the line's still sitting like plus 200. I think that's a steal.
Yeah, agreed. See, anything on here?
Yeah, I played Kish, I think maybe a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. I don't know. I got like plus 226, I think. Yeah, I mean, kind of like what Luke said, but anyway, like my general rule of thumb, like if you're gonna give me like any type of high variance striking match, and I get plus 200 on one side, where I think that it's much closer than that, and especially in women's MMA, where a knockout's pretty unlikely. And you get the side that's going to put out volume and constantly move forward. Going to take a chance. I think the line's probably closer to like 55-45 Mazzo. But yeah, I wouldn't play Mazzo at this price. I'm sure Kish decision's like plus 350 or 400.
Plus 420.
That's probably a better stab, but yeah, I don't think you could go wrong taking plus 2XX on women's MMA striking match.
Yeah, I agree. I also got in on Kish this week. I got a unit at plus 225. I'm not going to rehash much of what Luke and C said. The only thing I'll really add to that is if you actually watch Mazzo, I think she's talented, but she's not like this isn't a case of, let's say, Grasso and Kim from a couple weeks ago, where Grasso clearly was the more skilled fighter. Like, Mazzo is more technical, but she doesn't usually do a great job of getting off on her strikes unless her opponent's standing in front of her. We saw that with Aldrich in the pocket and in the clinch, and then Shanna Dobson, who's basically just kind of a zombie in the octagon. And Kish is actually extremely movement-based, and you kind of saw that in her fight against Pudilova, how basically, Pudilova was coming forward, but she just couldn't find the target. And I kind of think that lateral movement that Kish is going to bring is going to cause Mazzo some issues. So, yeah, similar to C, I think it's really high variance. Unless you give Mazzo like a 30+% chance to finish, I don't really see how you could justify her being at minus 270. Just doesn't make a ton of sense to me. So, yeah, I think it's about 55-45, 60-40 as well. So, yeah, I'm on Kish per unit, plus 225 legs. How about you?
So, like, similar thoughts to all of you guys, except I haven't pulled the trigger on a bet yet. I'm just kind of holding off, really. I don't really, I don't know. This fight just didn't really intrigue me. We get her, you see. You good? Oh, I don't think he's talking to us. But, I don't, basically, like, this wasn't one of the fights really I'm trying to target. And I kind of think, like, similar to what Luke said, it's going to be a high variance, close split decision. So, I don't really want my money towards that, even though, like, I agree with you guys. Kish is the value side, but I just don't really want to put any money on this dumpster fire for first fight. So pass for me, but I agree with you guys on Kish. I think it's definitely, the line should definitely be a lot closer.
Yeah, agreed. We move on to the second fight of the night. We got Anthony Ivy, Aquaman, coming back and taking on Bam Bam, Brian Barbarina. C, if you can hear me, do you have anything here?
I think he's on the phone.
All right.
Yeah, I think
so I'll jump into this
then.
Yeah, so I got a couple things here. I actually played Ivy for a unit at plus 235 today, and I actually played him for about a quarter of a unit on his submission line, which is currently plus 1,700. And basically my thinking is this, first of all, taking away all the outside of the octagon variables of Barbarina, of which there's many red flags, but taking that away, last time Barbarina fought, he really didn't look very good against Randy Brown, and he wasn't reacting to shots well. I mean, he just wasn't himself. Now, that could be the back, and he had back surgery, but I mean, major back surgery. I'm not sure why we trust him to come back better. But even beyond that, throughout his career, we've seen where he's generally had the most trouble is against guys who are going to grind him. And, for whatever you think about Ivy, he's reliable to come forward and spam takedowns. Like, if it goes 15 minutes, he's probably going to attempt 7 to 10 takedowns here. He may not get them all, but I think he can pretty much find the clinch with Barbarina at will. And with that being the case, I just kind of think Barbarina, unless he knocks him out, has a really hard time covering this line. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of value on Ivy. I don't think it should be more than Barbarina minus 150, to be honest. See, I'll toss it to you since I was going to start with you here. Ivy Barbarina.
Yeah, sure. I played originally, when I first looked at this, I was thinking, it would be a pass just because in general, I think Barbarina's okay. But then when I really looked into a few things, I just think that there's more, there's more information that I have that leads me to believe that Barb's probably, somewhat shot here. He's coming off back surgery. I think he was 250 pounds. Normally I don't really like to play in the optics like this, but like those two things combined with Luke, which was a massive fucking war. The way he looked first round, you touched on it. The way he looks when he was taking shots. I don't think Ivy's, anything special, but I do have a little bit of Ivy sub, and I know a lot of people, have said this and that about Ivy's grappling, but like, in my mind, when I'm making some of these prop plays, like I just need to know that someone's going to give himself an opportunity to really make that. So like plus 1,700 on someone like Ivy, who's probably going to land takedowns. I don't think Barb's, has amazing takedown defense or is a really good grappler by any means. So like that checks off the first box, right? Like Ivy has an opportunity to kind of set himself up to be in a position to get a sub. And then fucking magic.
Don't get into a car crash while you're talking to us, I see.
So then the second part is like, Barb's coming off all these things, question marks. Like his cardio could be complete shit. And if his cardio is shit, the later this thing goes, like, yeah, like Ivy's going to have an opportunity. I don't think anybody would be crazy to say Ivy's the better grappler, right? So I just think all things kind of point me toward like, Ivy money line's probably fine. But, I'm going to go a little bit deeper than that and play the sub. And I have a little bit on the round one because I kind of feel like within the first round, I'm going to know if Barb's completely done or not. And if he's completely done, I have a feeling that this is done pretty quickly. So yeah, I think plus 1,700 on Ivy subs, way too wide. But, others are going to disagree.
Luke, how are you?
Yeah, so not to play, I guess, complete contrarian. I don't have a bet here, but I'm just not a big Anthony Ivy guy at all. Granted, like I think he's 30 years old, but he's still like relatively young, I guess, in terms of his career. He only has like 11 pro fights, so he could be one of these guys where I think you do see massive strides made fight to fight, which is always intriguing. And I'll also say that I'm definitely not a big Barbarina guy, but I do think this is one of those situations where like strength of competition also really needs to be considered. Dude has fought just a ton of absolute killers and actually hung relatively tough. I know he didn't look great in the most recent fight against Brown. So I guess I don't hate the bets necessarily if I guess the angle is that he's just not what he used to be, and he comes in here, he's out of shape and sucking wind, and then Ivy's, pushing a high pace and Barb just can't keep up. So I definitely don't hate that angle, but I don't know. I guess just from a skill set standpoint, I think the guy's a little bit overrated. He's a black belt under Brazilian top team. He has a foundational wrestling background, but there's just some small things on the ground that I see that I don't necessarily see him exploiting against Barbarina. That's not to say he's some elite defensive wrestler or a grappler in and of himself, but he's fought some decent grapplers over the course of his career too, and haven't really seen too much issue from him. So I'm going to actually assume that we see a decent Barbarina, but definitely not telling you to run to the window to bet a guy like Barb at minus 270. If you're going to bet a guy like Barb in general, give me like pick 'em odds or like a dog odd type of play. Like he's that kind of fighter. Those are the spots I'd want to target him. Definitely not here. So I personally don't see value on either side. I like Barb to win.
Lex, how about you?
Yeah, so kind of just spilling over what Luke was saying there. Vicente Luque is a similar type of fighter. I don't bet him. I don't look to bet him minus 300, minus 250. I want those pick 'em odds, those dog odds to back Vicente Luque. But what C was saying, this is a pass for me, to be honest. I don't really see like all the red flags with Barbarina and everything going on. We don't really know how COVID Barbarina is really going to show up, and he didn't really look too great in his last fight. So I do think that you guys are right with Ivy, but to what Luke was saying, I kind of agree with him. I don't really think Ivy's anything special, and his reactions in the last fight against Aguilera to the punches in the first round, I can't imagine he's going to have any better reactions against Barber if he's landing on him a ton. So I think if this is like 75, 80% Barbarina coming back here in this fight, I think he rolls and he probably knocks him out. But if not, then I think this could be hairy. So I wish you guys luck, but I don't want to put any money on this fight.
All right. So we move on to, oh man, a guy who burned me a while back. Brock Weaver taking on Jalen Turner. Anybody have a play here? Have any strong thoughts about this fight?
I think the line's definitely kind of wide. I saw it was like minus 500, I think, at the current odds. I mean, I think plus 350, plus 370 on a grindy type of guy like a Matt Frevola in this instance. I think the value currently, I think, would be on Brock Weaver. But I kind of think, like we've touched on before in this podcast, I think he's trash. So I probably won't be putting my money near him at all. It'll probably just be a fun fight to watch and probably be rooting for Jalen, to be honest.
Luke?
So I think honestly I think the Weaver money is going to continue to come in. I think he's sitting at what's he at right now?
He is at minus 325 right now, Turner.
Is he? He's that high?
Minus 325, Weaver plus 250.
Oh, I guess maybe some money spiked back in. I think he was down to minus 200 at one, or not that low, but in the minus 200 range at one point. But no, this is definitely a spot where Jalen Turner should roll. But I've also always been super skeptical on Jalen Turner, kind of similarly to the last fight. He's definitely not the kind of guy I want to back at such big odds. Definitely not the biggest Brock Weaver fan. Definitely a tough guy, but I still also don't think Brock necessarily has the grit or really the skill set necessarily to do a whole lot to Jalen Turner. But then again, at those big opening odds of Jalen at like minus 500, and if you jumped in on Brock at like plus 400, I really don't hate that flyer because I don't think Jalen Turner should be minus 500 versus anybody personally. But I think that's just really more so the definition of a flyer. This is a fight I really don't want any part of unless a ton of Weaver money comes in and you're going to give me Jalen around like minus 186 or something, then it becomes a different conversation. But I don't see the line closing that much.
Yeah, fair. See, any thoughts here?
Yeah, no, not pass. I wouldn't play Turner there, but I was going to play Weaver versus Frank, so I don't know. I got to think about it a little bit more.
Yeah, I haven't taped it. I'm going to probably have to tonight, maybe briefly. Kind of similar thoughts to Lags. Like, I kind of think if there's value right now, it's probably with Weaver. Like, I was going to play Turner against Moises pretty big last week, but unfortunately that got canceled. But very different dynamic. Like, I think Moises is better than Weaver, but Weaver will go forward, push you to the fence and make things dirty. And, the one time we've seen Turner in that kind of a fight, I don't want to say he wilted. I wouldn't say he wilted, but he didn't react very well to getting backed up. He likes being on the front foot. So my gut, at least initially, is there's probably some value on Weaver here. How much? I'm not really sure. I'm going to have to look into it a bit more. Should be a fun fight, though. So we move on. We got Matt, the Steamroller Frevola, taking on Roosevelt Roberts. See, you want to start here? I think you have a play, right?
Yeah, I played Jesus fuck. Let me turn. Yeah, I played Roberts. I think honestly, I think we're getting a good price on Roberts here. I know the Jim Miller fight. I guess I get like I played Miller. I understand the narrative of like Frevola being a grinder, but honestly, I don't think Frevola is really that good. He could grind you, I guess, but even in the grappling, I don't really think that Frevola is just gonna ride out Roberts, and I think he's gonna honestly have a hard time on his entries. I think Roberts is gonna fucking tag him up. Don't really like anything about Frevola on the feet. Me personally, I'm playing the knockout prop. I think Roberts is going to knock him out. Roberts, if you watch that Pichel fight, like he put it on Vince that first round, and I kind of think that he's going to have a lot of success just teeing off on Frevola here. I just don't know. I just not really a fan of Frevola. Definitely see the narrative of him grinding, but we'll see. We'll see. His brother is coming for you, Quinn.
Yeah, the Frevola family
brothers.
gets pretty aggressive on Twitter if you say anything. I got into it with the brother before his last fight, or the book's one against Macho. Yeah, I don't know play here, at least at the moment. I keep hoping, because I see a lot of Frevola love. I keep hoping the line's going to move, because you'd think with the way Frevola is getting hyped up, like from most of the betting community, that it would at some point start to move. And like I actually am interested in playing Roberts at like plus money. Some real questions for me about him, obviously. Like, the Pichel fight is pretty disturbing. The Yakovlev fight in parts is pretty disturbing. But to like what C said, in space, he's going to absolutely massacre Frevola. Like, Frevola is super hittable. Plus, I think Frevola's got a pretty bad gas tank as well. So, I don't know. I kind of think, C's referenced this before, but like if you were to look at the two fighters and say, okay, who has the best chance to look like minus 200 or minus 300 here? It's 100% Roberts. Like, I don't see really a scenario, unless he gets a sub, where Frevola just dominates Roberts, whereas it's very easy for me to imagine a scenario where Roberts just beats the fuck out of him for 15 minutes or finishes him. So, yeah, no play yet. I kind of think the line's okay, or maybe Roberts' slight favorite. But, yeah, I'm hoping that Frevola money comes in. Lags, how about you?
Yeah, not too strong of an opinion here, honestly. Similar thoughts, kind of like the opposite, I guess, what C said. I kind of think that Frevola could rush him up against the cage and could control him. I think he's the much bigger guy. He's much more bigger frame in there. It's just a question of how much damage he's going to take getting in on those entries and how long he's going to be able to have any top time here. So for Frevola to have a lot of success here, he's going to have a lot of top time, which could happen theoretically, but I don't really see happening. So I lean with you guys on Roberts, but I don't know. It's such a coin flip fight. Really, I've kind of been going back and forth. So really, it's just a stay away for me personally. I can't really decide.
Luke?
Yeah, this is one of my first fights in my 3 Not For Me over at MMA Odds Breaker. Cheap plug, check it out. Yeah,
sounds about right.
It's just a really funky fight, and it sounds like kind of a simplistic thing to say, but it's really one of those fights where whoever just gets off on their game plan is going to win and probably look decent doing it. As you guys
favorite.
I would probably agree with John and say, and more so in Roberts, if he's able to get off on his game, he's going to look probably a lot better than Frevola. But the thing with Roberts is like you touched on with the Pichel fight, the Yakovlev fight. There's just these points or whatever where he's shown that he can be grinded, and he's fighting a grinding guy, and he's been largely chalked up. So now it's kind of like the betting line and the public is kind of catching up to him, and now we're kind of in this like trough period of Roosevelt Roberts per se. But at the same time, like if there's something that you see out there, it could be like a massive like value spot with Roberts at this price, because he could go out there and just blow the doors off of Frevola. But I'm more so in the opinion where I just want to sit back and get questions answered in the sense of, okay, can he deal with a guy who's a grinder like Frevola? I'm not overtly high on Frevola, but he's one of these guys that's just kind of a funky guy who has shown some poor fight IQ, especially in that Miller fight, throws a kick like an idiot in the first round, then makes a simple mistake of trying to pull out of an arm bar, like the most cardinal sin you can do. So he's one of these guys I think just has a lot of potential, but I think he's going to be kind of close to my no bet list for a while until he can just kind of prove more to me. Just kind of frustrating to watch, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of that. So we move on to a ladies fight that could actually potentially be pretty fun. We got Julia Avila, CR Eubanks. Avila currently a big favorite. I believe she's sitting at minus 290 at the moment. Lags, what are your thoughts here?
So I know I was talking to you earlier today about this, and I was really high on Avila here. I think that I was going to parlay her, to be honest, but then after looking more into it, it's just kind of like I think this could be a good live betting opportunity, honestly. After the first round, see how, because I think Sajara's best round is going to be that first round. She's getting pressure come forward and throw a lot of strikes. But I don't really rate her striking all that well. It's mostly looping power shots. It does have power, yes, and Avila has shown to be hittable at times, but I just think Avila's game altogether is much more well-rounded at this time. So, but like I said, I don't think she should be a minus 300 favorite here. I don't really think that her finishing upside is huge here. She's a pretty tough girl altogether, so I think Avila probably wins this fight by decision, but not really looking to play her on the money line minus 300. So pass.
Luke.
Yeah, so interesting. I bet against Sarge. I had a couple units on Rosa before.
Same.
Oh, but I'm really heavily considering playing Sijara Eubanks at that decision line at over plus 400. I think that's really intriguing. It could end up being a sucker bet, but I don't know. My big thing is Avila just hasn't faced any girl who has any sort of real strong wrestling competency. And I'm not saying Sajara's some world beater. She used to fight at 125. Avila's a big 135. Sarge has some gas tank questions. Probably not the better striker here, even though I actually do think she's probably more technical than Avila. But WMMA, come forward, output, power, aggression. Avila checks that box. So ultimately, it's can she, have a good round as a good first round, as Lag said, and win rounds in the wrestling and steal some top time. But I also don't. I think she actually can be competitive in the stand up here. Like I said, from like a technical striking perspective, I really don't think she's that bad. It's just when she kind of gets tired and starts to slow down, which is what's nerve wracking in this matchup because Avila is an absolute bull. She's a girl you can't slow down against. So that's where my hesitation kind of comes in, but I think Sarge can test that defensive wrestling of Avila. So I haven't decided if I'm going to take the small stab on it yet, but I think this one could play closer than odds indicate.
See, how about you?
Yeah, I'm going to pass.
Yeah, Luke pretty much hit it on the head. I not that I think she's great. She's obviously 5-4. But, like, I've said this about Bobby Green before, and I'll probably say it again in a couple minutes. But I think if you were to play, like, Eubanks' career out 100 times, this is in the lower echelon of possible outcomes. Like, she's got real talent. Like, she can get fights down. She's a serious black belt. She's got some power, and she throws, at least early in fights, a decent output. The unfortunate thing is, and Luke, I think you mentioned it to me, it's like she hasn't made improvements. She's basically been a static fighter for her entire career. And at this point, she's probably too old to make substantial improvements. Like, if I could trust her gas tank, I'd probably play her here. I don't. I actually think I think one of the best ways to go about this is probably a live play, to be honest. Like, just kind of, because I really do think the first round is going to be competitive, and you might even see Eubanks land a takedown or two and win it on that. And in that case, you might get Avila close to evens, similar to all the people who hit Grasso close to evens last week after round one. She won against Kim. So, yeah, I'm passing for the moment. Lads, you gave a breakdown of this already, right?
Yeah.
All right. Can we move on?
I was just looking at it. It was kind of funny. All three of the women's underdogs this weekend by decision are all plus 420.
That's actually a little weird.
Kish Modafferi and Eubanks. Yeah.
That's kind of weird. We'll get to that, though. We move on. Prelim main event. Matt Danger Schnell taking on Tyson Nam. I played Schnell for 2 units, even money. I think he has every skill to basically win every single minute of this fight. Nam doesn't really do much, and Schnell throws a lot. He's probably a cleaner boxer. He's the better grappler for sure. He's probably the better wrestler. I was very confident about this. Luke and I'm sure Luke will get into it himself. We've been chatting about this fight for a bit. Obviously, the concern with Schnell is his chin, but my own thought was she's going to come in here, he's going to stick and move, and this is going to be easy work for 15 minutes for him, and he could look minus 300. And then this morning, I see an interview talking about how he comes here to entertain, and he's going to bite down on the mouthpiece and go forward. And yeah, I'm a little worried about this now. I wouldn't wager any money on Schnell at this point. Like, I'm thinking of putting some money down on the plus 195 Nam KO line just to kind of give myself a hedge, because if Schnell does go forward and looks to brawl in the pocket with Nam, I think the chances of him going to sleep are very, very high. Yeah, like Magic just says, that's what's going to happen. Like, I think he has every tool to win this fight cleanly, but I think if he brawls, he's going to get killed. Legs.
Yeah, I'll say the time. Similar thoughts to you. Pretty much, I think Schnell can look like a huge favorite here, but the durability is kind of a huge question here. Coming out of COVID, just having a kid, so where's his head at mentally? So it's easy pass for me.
Yeah, let me tell you, I just had a kid, and my body's been taking nicks left and right. Luke, how about you?
Yeah, so I definitely wish I heard that interview before I made this bet. Once again, not to look too heavily into interviews, but literally when you're going through and handicapping this fight and talking about like, hey, what's the one component that Matt Schnell should not do here? And then he goes fight week and then says that's exactly what he's going to do. That might be one you want to take into consideration what the guy says in an interview, but let's just throw that out the window for 2 seconds. My big thing in betting him against Nam, if you look at some of those fights where he's got into some of those big brawling exchanges, it's been kind of because guys have like coaxed him into it a little bit, and they've been more aggressive power punchers. And not say that Nam doesn't hit hard, but if you're kind of familiar with Nam in his career, he's kind of a guy who will just allow other opponents to dictate the pace on him, and then he just kind of follows. I know he sparked Adeshev, but once again, little 3-1 Russian chode guy who missed weight. What does that mean? But ultimately, it's been a pretty consistent theme throughout Nam's career that he's not this overtly high output type guy. The big knock on him is that he does not let his hands go. So my big thing here is like, if Matt Schnell has any sort of fight IQ and didn't go into this fight with a lobotomy, he literally just sticks and moves for 15 minutes, and it will be one of the easiest money-making nights of his entire life. But if he goes out there and fights like he said in this interview, the UFC should just cut the guy because he has no upside. He really doesn't. If from like a talent and skill set standpoint, I think he actually is really, he's good. He's well-rounded. But once again, if he's fighting like an idiot, he's just a really frustrating guy to watch, where if he realizes his potential, I think the sky's the limit for the guy. But this is one of these fights I'm just going to be holding my breath and probably shotgun and bush lights while watching.
See, how about you?
Yeah, I don't have anything here. I mean, I do agree that Schnell's the better fighter basically everywhere, but I mean it's not even really a question. His durability is just, I don't know, it's just not there. IQ's really not there. And Nam, I don't think he's like this humongous hitter, but I mean, he hits relatively hard, very low output, but I just fucking, I feel like Nam's win condition, his win condition really is just a knockout. So, I mean, I think if you're playing Nam, you probably want to play him round one. Again, I think this is one of those fights, like I talked about earlier, basically, same with the Ivy Barb fight. Like, you're going to pretty much know how this fight is going to trend, 2-3 minutes into it. So, if you're playing Nam, play him round one. If you're playing Schnell, I'd probably hedge off with some Nam knockout or Nam round one.
Yeah, agreed. Question, does anybody know where this King Kong fight is on the card? Because UFC does not have it posted on their website.
Tapology, bro. Tapology.
Yeah.
I like a good interface, okay?
It's actually supposed to be at the bottom, I think. I think it's now below the Kish fight.
All right. Well, we'll just start with this before we go into the main card.
Yeah.
I didn't tape it. I don't have a lot to say. I made my thoughts on Romanov pretty clearly last week. I don't know if anybody else did. Lags, you?
Pass.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a pass. I see he's like minus 400 in this fight. I don't know. Total pass. I think he's got one round in him, so if round one is plus money, maybe, but I pass.
Luke, how about you?
Yeah, I didn't look into it. Just wiki capping this Martinez guy. Beating a bunch of bumps in Japan, but it's another one of those situations. Newcomer, still a lot of question marks on Romanov. Not trying to lay minus 325. I was considering it at essentially near pick'em odds in the last matchup against De Lima. Ultimately ended up not doing it, but yeah, definitely not trying to lay minus 325 on a guy who still has some definite questions that need to be answered. So I wouldn't suggest anybody touches this fight.
Yeah, agreed. So we'll jump into the main card. First fight is going to be a fun one. We got Billy Quarantillo against Kyle Nelson. What do you got here, Steve?
Yeah, I played Nelson. I'm not a big Billy Q guy. Honestly, I don't really think Billy Q's good. I understand, the output and the cardio, but I don't see, I guess, like a real reason that Nelson couldn't grind him out on top if it really came down to that. And secondly, I think the first round knockout, obviously live, Nelson hits hard. Billy Q's defense on the feet, meh. I just see like more reasons to me like that Nelson should be like in the 55% range than Billy Q should be 70%. So yeah, I mean, I'm playing Nelson round one, but I don't like fully, think that that's like his only win condition. I just think that it happens at a much greater clip than plus 1300 indicates. But yeah, I mean, I don't even, if you're going to play Nelson, I would probably just be conservative, a little bit more conservative, and just play the money line at 2-1. I think it's a really good price.
Yeah, agreed. I had a rant dialed up, but I want to make sure I have a voice left next week for my Kazmat rant, so I'm not going to go too hard here. But anyway, I like what you said. I don't really understand the Billy Q love, to be honest. Like, Spike Carlisle might be entertaining. He is not a good fighter, and Billy Q was struggling to get gassed out Spike Carlisle out of there, and probably lost that fight. The guy doesn't basically defend strikes with his head. His best asset really is his cardio. And I know he's a black belt, but I don't know how closely you guys watch the jiu-jitsu. I'm not overly impressed, to be honest. He plays guard a lot, which I don't like. And so basically, like, look, yeah, Nelson could gas out and get finished late here. Billy Q round 3 is probably a decent bet, to be honest. But the first round, like, Kyle Nelson is a pretty dangerous finisher. And, like, Billy Q is going to walk through fire in round number 1. And then, like, I know Nelson doesn't have a great gas tank, but he won round 2 after taking a hellacious beating in round 1 against Matt Sales. So it's like, I think the idea that he can't win a decision here just doesn't really stand up when you look at it. Now, I mean, look, I think an early finish is definitely his best win condition, but I just don't really get it. Like, I think Nelson is likely to land a lot of heavy shots in this fight. And with his power, I just think, like what he said, giving him a 30% indication just doesn't make a lot of sense. This is kind of one of those fights where, Nelson could drop him while he's tired and steal around late. So, yeah, I'm kind of where he is. I think it's closer to evens than where this line is. I don't really understand all the max bets I'm seeing on Billy Q out there. I just don't rate him really at all. And so, yeah, I played a half unit on Nelson in round 1 at plus 900. And then I also played a unit on Nelson on the money line plus 215. We'll see what happens, but I'm going to keep fading Billy Q. And if I lose this, I'll just double up next time. Lex, how about you?
So, yeah, I was on, like you touched on, I was on Spike in his last fight for 2 units at plus 130. And I'll be honest, similar thoughts to when I was watching it live. I thought Spike kind of got robbed, to be honest. I thought he won that fight, but ultimately, it was a close fight altogether, and I didn't think Billy Q looked all that great late in that fight. The big talk in that fight was the cardio, and similar to here, the big knock on Kyle is he doesn't throw a lot late and he gets tired a lot. But I don't know. I'm not really high on Billy Q in this spot, and like you guys touched on, I don't think he should be near 70% here. So my lean would be Kyle, and I might be touching that Kyle Nelson round 1 knockout at plus 1300, but other than that, it's probably just a pass for me. But yeah, similar to what you said, John, I don't really understand all the parlaying love for Billy Q this week.
Luke, how about you?
Yeah, so I got 1.5 units on the under 2.5 rounds at minus 140. To me, I'm trying to play this one. I'm trying to play this. I think that's like, if we're talking about a safe, yeah, I think if we're talking about a safe bet for this fight, I think that's where it is. I definitely get the Nelson money line plays, but I guess we'll slightly disagree on that, John. I just don't necessarily. I can't trust Kyle Nelson to necessarily win 2 minutes. Like, he might. I'm not saying it's impossible, because I'm definitely more in camp of Billy Q being overrated here, and I personally think Nelson ices him in that first round. Fun little note: Billy Q has dropped the first round in his last 2 out of his last 3 fights within the last calendar year. Definitely don't want to be a slow starter against a guy like Kyle Nelson. And then in the event that Billy Q actually does survive here, I'm really interested to see what happens if this fight hits the ground and Kyle Nelson has any sort of gas, because I know Billy's a black belt and Nelson's only a purple belt, but Nelson's been doing BJJ for like 15 years. Why he hasn't ranked up, I have no idea. But just at least in some of the tape I've watched, the guy's really, really confident there. And I think his actual jiu-jitsu skills exceed purple belt status per se. It really just comes down to whether the guy has gas or not. Because if he doesn't, then he makes small mistakes and he ends up getting submitted kind of like he did against Matt Sales in the 3rd round. But ultimately, I don't think Billy Q just like runs through Kyle Nelson on the ground like at all, unless he's like completely done and shot, then maybe. But I don't think he just runs through Kyle Nelson on the ground either. So yeah, definitely wouldn't recommend backing Billy at this price. I definitely don't hate any of the Nelson bets straight, but I think Kyle Nelson can either knock him out or submit him. And in the instance that, he does slow down and start making some small mistakes, I think Billy Q could really put a beating on him, whether he knocks Nelson out or submits him too. So, yeah, their fights hit the under about 72%. So like minus 260 on the money line. So I think minus 140 is kind of a gift.
All right. And we move on to everyone's favorite, Bobby King Green against Alan Patrick. Lags, you want to start with this?
Yeah, so he was actually one of the fighters I was talking about earlier with Avila that I was looking to parlay. So I'm actually probably going to end up parlaying Bobby Green, but I'm kind of waiting for a little bit. Like we touched on earlier, I think this line's going to come down a little bit. But the problem with Bobby Green, like you touched on earlier, he has great potential, but it's just not all there. All of his fights just seem to play out a lot closer than needed to be. Puts himself in precarious situations when not needed to. So, but ultimately, I mean, he looked great in his last few fights, and I think he's on this upward trend. But at the same time, I don't know. I think this is kind of wide, like where it's sitting right now. So, like we touched on, I think if once the line comes in a little bit, I'll be looking to play it. Considering Patrick's coming off a 2-year layoff, so I don't really. I kind of think he's sub or bust in this matchup. So that's
Luke, how about you?
Yeah, no real strong opinion here. Kind of similar to who was I talking about? Barb earlier on this card. Bobby Green's just not a guy I'm really trying to lay over minus 200 against anybody. I mean, we've talked about Bobby Green because he's fought so much, at least recently on this pod. Obviously, the dude's got a decent skill set, but as Lag said, and I echo his sentiment, he's a guy who just makes things a lot more difficult than they need to be. So if you're giving me a Bobby Green at Pick'em or a big plus number, then I guess I'm a little bit more willing to take the quote unquote leap of faith. But I actually do think in this spot he does roll. Still not willing to lay that kind of price. Just given Patrick's style, he's kind of awkward, long. He really only has success in all of his UFC fights if he's able to land takedowns and get them consistently. Lots of top control time, but other than that, super low output. Like I said, just kind of awkward, darts in and out, one and done with his shots. But also leaves his chin really exposed here. I know Bobby Green hasn't knocked anybody out in 8 years. I think that could be a sneaky little decent prop if you want to take a stab. Is the Bobby Green knockout prop. Patrick's striking defense is not bad, and if he's not able to get those takedowns, he slows, and he slows bad and just really doesn't have a concept of what to do on his feet if he's not able to get into that in and out awkward type rhythm. And against a guy in the boxing of Bobby Green with decent takedown defense, even when he's been taken down, not overtly controlled, I think it's just a really bad matchup for Patrick. So not trying to give prop advice necessarily, but I think that big plus KO number could be
real quick interesting. So I was looking into a Lambo parlay earlier today. I was looking at that KO line as well, and it's also plus 420. So
what do you got, Steve?
Yeah, honestly, outside of Bobby Green just being, having questionable fight IQ, there's probably a good case for Bobby Green to be like minus 400 here. Bobby Green probably beats everybody that you could think of in this weight class, including Khabib. I'm a big Bobby Green guy. I don't see how Patrick beats Bobby Green, to be honest. He's not going to be able to get top time on him. And on the feet, honestly, it's not really going to be close. I just don't really see a viable path for Patrick to beat Bobby Green outside of Bobby Green going, I don't know, fucking insane, or just losing his mind. But
Got that Matt Schnell brain.
I mean, it could happen, but I just don't think it's likely. I do like that knockout prop. I'm a big Bobby Green fan. I honestly, I don't even see a problem playing him straight. If I'm being completely honest, I think this is a really good spot for him. Just I can't see Patrick having success here.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with most of everything he said. Kind of hoping that it'll come in like below -233, because like I do sort of think like Patrick winning this fight outside of like random injury or random flash finish is holding him on the fence and kind of just getting a ton of cage push time. Because let's be real, even if he takes him down, he's not keeping him there. Which look, he could do that, but I just don't see how that's a more like winning by via cage push isn't probably more than like a 10 to 15% outcome. That could happen. That's, I guess, the other possibility. But honestly, like I've really kind of liked, Green's last two fights. Well, maybe not the Gita fight. Gita, honestly, kind of similar to Patrick, but maybe a little bit more physical. But Green's last fight against Lando, he was a lot sharper with his striking. We've seen him in a while. He was letting his hands go a lot more, a lot less posing. I thought he looked great, and I think if he sees him in the same mindset, he's going to knock Patrick out. So I'm somewhat interested in that prop as well. And like I said, if it drops below like -233, I'm probably going to jump in on Green here. But yeah, I think C hit the nail on the head with that.
And then to add real quick, I'll definitely be looking to add Green for DK this week. He's definitely going to have tons of strikes, even if this fight isn't extended super long.
I agree completely. We move on. We got Ed Herman taking on Slow Mike Rodriguez, Lags North Star here.
So I originally had a play for the Herman GM3 fight, and that was just to not go the distance. I think that was parlayed with the Ankalaev fight to not go the distance as well, and that fight ended up getting pulled off. But not a super strong opinion here either way. I'm not really too high on Mike Rodriguez. I mean, we touched on him in the last few weeks that we thought he was just going to knock out Pragnell, which kind of happened. He was kind of a bum, doesn't really belong in the UFC. But with Herman, he's a little bit tougher than that. I think he's durable, and he's going to last in this fight a lot longer than a lot of Rodriguez's opponents. So I kind of looking at the over 1.5 at the moment at -140. But at the same time, like Rodriguez is kind of that. He has that style where he's like kill or be killed. So he comes at you real early, and I don't know if Herman's going to be able to deal with that pressure early. So the lean would be the over 1.5 right now, and Rodriguez, but not super confident on the side.
Luke, up to you.
Yeah, this is a tricky one. I also had a play in the Herman GM3 fight. I actually played Ed Herman straight at like +155 or something like that. But obviously, completely different style matchup here. I do think the line on Rodriguez is wide, but based on the stylistics of this fight, it's definitely not the kind of fight where I'd be looking to back Ed Herman, just because Rodriguez is that big explosive type guy, and a guy in Ed Herman who's just kind of relatively slow in prodding, doesn't really utilize much footwork. I don't want to necessarily say he's a stationary target, but kind of is. So when you're fighting a big,
I'd say this point of his career, he probably is.
Yeah. So when you're fighting a big explosive guy like that, whether you think highly of him or not, to me, it just speaks red flags for Ed Herman. I know he's been tough and durable and difficult to finish, but he also is getting up there in age, and I'm just not convinced he eats those big shots of Rodriguez. But one thing I will say about Rodriguez is that he's a guy who just does not use his reach effectively. He's got that Maurice Green syndrome. He's much bigger than a lot of the guys he's fighting in terms of his length.
Yep.
Just does not consistently use it. So I think that gives an interesting chance for Ed Herman to actually get inside and see if he can win. Because Ed Herman, I do think wins in that dirty boxing type fight here. I know he's never been a huge takedown threat necessarily offensively, but if he's able to get Rodriguez down, we could be looking at a pretty decent upset here. So I'm not saying to run to the window to bet Ed Herman, but I do think that's, if gun to your head you are to bet this fight, I think Ed Herman is the value side.
C, you got anything for us? All right, I'm sure C will be back. Yeah, basically like what you guys said. I kind of think Rodriguez speed, size, youth, power, probably going to be enough for him to flatline Herman pretty early in the fight. That's kind of like my gut. I don't hate the overcall because Herman has looked durable. I just kind of have a feeling that he's going to get stuck kind of in that like no man's land a couple times and just get caught clean. That said, I don't really love the line on Rodriguez though, at like minus 260. Like if we're being real, he's a bit of a skirt. And the guy has shown basically any time someone's kind of like put pressure on him, he's wilted. And if Herman can close the distance here and can get close, he could push Rodriguez into those dark waters where we've seen him kind of drown before. In some fairness to Rodriguez, John Alon was on steroids when he fought him. But even so, we've seen Herman take other guys to that place, and I don't trust Rodriguez to persevere there. Like we've seen it too many times for me to trust it until I see him actually do it. So yeah, I think Rodriguez finishes him early. I have no interest in playing him. See, any thoughts on this fight?
Pass.
Excellent. All right, we move on to the people's main event. Roxanne, the Happy Warrior Modafferi, taking on Andrea KGB Lee. See, you want to start it here? What do you got? Or sorry, Luke. Set Luke in the play.
Yeah, so definitely not a fight that I was anticipating I was going to have a play on. Given that I was so invested in Andrea Lee versus Lauren Murphy, and despite it being a terrible decision, I don't know, Andrea Lee just kind of left a salty taste in my mouth after that fight. But then I was scrolling through best fight odds and I see a minus 140 on Andrea Lee decision line. And I'm like, this is crazy. And seeing that, I like immediately had flashbacks to the Alexa Grasso Jian Kim fight, where you have a girl who's on the money line straight over minus 300, but then her decision line is sitting around 60%. When it's also both girls whose most likely path to victory, as it's been over the course of their career as strikers, who are throwing high output to go out and win on the card. So I saw minus 140, and it's another one of these fights. Like I said, I wasn't clamoring to play, but I saw them like, I have to play it at this number. Like I just have to. Like there is a chance that Roxy makes this a greasy split decision, and then we see exactly what happened in the Lauren Murphy fight, where she might be able to land a few takedowns. She might land a few shots. And apparently that steals her rounds in the eyes of the judges, even though the judges clearly have no idea what they're looking at. Because if you know anything, Andrea Lee's clearly landing the better strikes, and anything anyone's throwing at her, she's largely blocking them. And if people do take her down, they're doing absolutely nothing with them. So minus 140 for a small play at 1.5 units. It's one of these bets I'm willing to lose. I think she beats Roxy at a really decent clip. How often there's a finish there, I think it's pretty small percentage. So less than 60% indication. I'm willing to take that, and hopefully not get smoked on a decision, but we'll see.
See anything here?
Pass.
All right. Yeah, I like Lee here. Not a whole lot to add to that. Pretty much all I'll say is I've seen some people say, Roxy might have value, and it's like, let's go back. Like, for some reason, because of the Macy Barber fight, people now think Roxy is a decent wrestler. Macy Barber tore her ACL, and Anthony Shevchenko, after she turned Caitlin Chikagian into Khabib, I think it's pretty clear that you can't really take much from that either. Versus every other girl she's ever fought who could wrestle, or when she's tried to wrestle, it's been disastrous. I think she only landed 13% of her takedown attempts. Her only thing is trying to do tricks from the clinch. And in the clinch, she's going to get battered by Lee. If she gets her down, she's not holding her there. She's probably not getting her down more than one or two times over the course of the fight. And she's going to probably get lit up on the feet. I'm not keen to lay minus 310 on a WMMA fight pretty much ever. I've thought about parlaying up Lee, though. I think she's going to absolutely put it on Roxy. I don't really see a good case for betting Modafferi. And it's another one of those fights where it's like, I hate playing that kind of juice, but some of these people who are talking up Roxy's value actually, come to town and put their money in play and this line closes a bit, I might. So, yeah, I think he's going to absolutely put it on her here. Lex, how about you?
To Magic's point, actually, that he's bringing up right now, in the last fight, Lauren Murphy, Roxy, I had the over 2.5 to parlay, and wow, was I sweating. Roxy took a bad shot in that first round, and she was wobbled pretty bad, but she was able to weather it and get it to a decision. So I'm similar thoughts here. I mean, I think that later in the fight, Lee has a chance for a TKO. But to Luke's point, I think more often than not, she's going to roll to a decision here if the judges are competent and can score this fight correctly. I don't know how. I honestly, I rewatched the fight, and I don't know how you can score at 30-27, Murphy. I'm okay with maybe 29-28 at best, but even that, I think that's kind of crazy. So this is the second leg of my parlay. I'm actually looking to play Lee by KO or decision, and that's sitting at -270 right now. I saw the money line sitting at -355, and I really don't have much interest there. I think there is a small chance, like I said, for a late TKO, but ultimately I think Lee rolls in this matchup. I don't know how Roxy wins this other than maybe like a greasy split and significant top time, which I just don't really see.
Yeah, I agree. Next up, we got co-main event. We got Ottman and Zaitar against Kama Worthy. A lot of money's come in on Worthy. I think it's open because Zaitar -185. Worthy now -135 favorite. See, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I'm gonna try and make this quick since we got some other sports starting up again tonight.
We got about 25 minutes.
Yeah, I'm gonna take Will Fuller touchdown score tonight. Parlaying that with Zaitar round 1 knockout. Honestly, my thoughts on this fight is that Zaitar's win condition is probably a round 1 knockout. I do think he hits hard. He doesn't have good technique. He is a little bit sloppy. But Worthy, in my opinion, is kind of just getting overvalued. I mean, I do think he has like some type of cardio edge, probably a grappling edge, but on the feet, I think his chin's still a question mark. Don't like his footwork. Really don't like anything that he offers on the feet. So yeah, I mean, I'm going Zaitar round 1 +600. Magic, you know what? You're a fucking fraud.
Yeah. So basically, I agree with Magic that Zaitar's a fraud. Like, I think he's bad. The thing is, he hits really hard. And, like, we know Worthy's chinny, and like I've seen people say, "Oh, Worthy hasn't been chinny since he moved up to lightweight." Okay, well, but that's really not really true because he fought Devontae Smith, who, let's not forget, Devontae Smith, who got finished by John Gunther. He knocked him out fairly quick, and then he fought Luis Pena, who has no power in his hand. So I don't think we've learned really a goddamn thing about Worthy since he moved up to lightweight. Like, he's definitely the cleaner striker here, and if this fight gets extended, I expect him to probably put it on as Zaitar late. Definitely better cardio. Zaitar wings hooks, Worthy throws straight shots. But Zaitar hits really hard, and Worthy defends strikes with his head. I think he's only defended distance strikes at like 49% in the UFC so far, which is truly, truly atrocious.
I'm going to have some guy drop off some shoes tomorrow. I just want to make sure you're home.
Got it, too. But so basically, I think Zaitar is going to hit him with a big shot at some point. Maybe Worthy turns out that he's got better cardio or better chin than we thought. But I played a half unit on a Zaitar first round KO +600. I kind of think it should be more like +300, to be honest with you. I just think it's very, very live, and I think Worthy's going to get hit very hard several times in that first round. And given his notorious famous durability issues, I think he's probably getting put out. Lex.
Yeah, similar thoughts to you. I'm probably going to throw a half unit on that first round knockout as well. It's sitting at +550 right now, and I kind of think largely that is his win condition in this spot. And I think that over these last two huge underdog cashes for Worthy, I think that the books are now slightly overvaluing him. I think Zaitar maybe, like, I get Worthy being a favorite, I guess, but I seeing all this money keep coming in is kind of bizarre to me. I think this is like we touched on. I think it's more of like a coin flip fight. So I
Luke,
mean,
sorry.
that's about it. No, you're good.
Luke.
Yeah, so this rounds out my 3 not for me from a straight perspective on the fights to pass on. Yeah, this is just one of those really, really funky fights. Actually, digging back into tape, I went back and I did a super deep dive on Worthy. I went back and watched like all the vicious KOs he had, and then I watched all the fights like up until his UFC run. And like the big thing I ended up coming away with is actually I do think the guy is a lot better than I thought he was, but actually in this particular matchup, like the big, essentially the crux of why I'm passing here is that any of those fights on the regional scene, and even some of the fights in the UFC, even the Devontae Smith fight, even the Luis Pena fight, ever since those brutal knockouts and he's been on this crazy win streak, no guys really pushed him like at all. The only guys that really have, they've just tried to wrestle him, but there's been really no guy who's came at him and tried to take his head off. So to me, I don't really have any questions answered in terms of his durability and defensive striking because of opponents. His opponents have just essentially obliged him in these outside point fighting type fights, which Kama Worthy's going to succeed in. The guy is super fast. I think his boxing's crisp. But Zaitar, at least historically, has shown not to do that. A guy who's going to throw caution to the wind. So assuming Zaitar had a lobotomy with Zalima Madaev last week, and who's going to stand there like a deer in the headlights for 15 minutes.
And Alonzo Menefield too.
And Alonzo Menefield. I think he finds that chin of Kama Worthy early here, and I think we're going to get some questions answered if Kama can hold up under that kind of pressure. Because if he can, we have also seen Ottman slow down in some of these latter rounds, even though he's won a fight in the third round and won a decision. His pressure has kind of ultimately been better than some of those guys. And I just think that technical prowess of Worthy on the outside in terms of his striking, if he's able to kind of get off on that foot movement, that footwork and kind of pump that jab out and stay smart as Zaitar starts to slow down, I think Worthy could take over the fight. But that's a big if, man. That round one is going to be 5 fucking minutes of fury, or maybe 30 seconds of fury. Who knows? So it's one of those spots. Seconds. Yeah, it's one of those spots where I just don't know how you can necessarily lay a minus number next to Worthy. I mean, I get the sentiment that he's probably more likely to win a decision here. But as I touched on, there's just so many questions that there just really hasn't been a guy that's pushed him since those knockouts. So I think it's just really a flyer on Worthy at this point. But this actually rounds out my my little long shot parlay with round 1 KO with Nelson, round 1 KO Zaitar at plus 9,000. You guys are terrible influences on me.
Lambo parlays.
And we move on to the main event of the evening. We got the karate hottie, Michelle Waterson, taking on Angela Overkill Hill. Hill, I believe, is minus 120. Waterson's even right now. Luke, what do you have?
So I have 2 units on Angela Hill at minus 123. Another intriguing fight. To me, it's really just indicative on how much Michelle Waterson has success here is indicative on her being able to land takedowns. And in saying that, I'm not saying that she can't strike with Angela Hill. Obviously, her counter-striking outside game is on point. But one of the big thing, like one of the comparisons I wanted to make in this fight was the Michelle Waterson fight. When Michelle Waterson fought Karolina Kowalkiewicz, like a high volume striker per se, like the big difference I noted is that Karolina kind of just followed her around for a large majority of that fight, which obviously is going to allow a girl like Michelle Waterson with a decent counter game and good footwork to get off on that. But Karolina is largely just a stationary target. So I was trying to find some comparison there, but in Angela Hill, she's a girl who's just constantly staying moving, who's throwing from unorthodox angles, switching her stances. She's proven to be high volume. And I just don't think that type of pressure and pace is going to be able to hold up for Michelle Waterson. I mean, the 2 girls that beat her in Joanna, not making the direct comparison, but Joanna and Tisha Torres were girls who kind of really just put a pace on her. And it's when Michelle Waterson can't get into that striking rhythm or she's not able to land takedowns is when she struggles. So To me, I don't see Angela Hill allowing her to get into kind of that counter flow type rhythm and just pick her apart on the outside. I just do not see that happening at all. I just think Michelle Waterson's going to have to land takedowns and get lots of control time. I'm not saying she's not going to be able to take Angela Hill down, but I don't think she's going to sit there and be able to steal 3-4 minutes of top time. Maybe. I'm just not convinced. I think minus 123 is a bit low. I capped Hill like around minus 186, but if Waterson is able to get off on that takedown game, I might be eating my bet, but I just don't see how she hangs with the movement pace and flow of Angela Hill for 25 minutes.
Fair enough. See, what do you got?
Yeah, I played Hill for 1.5 units. I think Waterson's I agree in the fact that she needs to get takedowns to win. I honestly don't think that this is close on the feet. I'm kind of like an anti Waterson as a striker. Just not really a fan of kind of what she offers. And I don't think she's going to have success for someone like Hill. Hill can kick that leg. Honestly, she's got good 1-2. Her movement's pretty well. Good elbows. I think most of what Waterson will have success with or needs to do to win is get those takedowns. I do know she has some of those head and arm shit that she does. But my opinion, I guess, on this is Waterson's win condition is heavily, in my opinion, weighted toward submission. I do think if she's having success landing, 2 takedowns, 3 takedowns, whatever the fuck it might be, and she has top time, she is probably going to find a sub at some point. I mean, she does have some crafty jiu-jitsu. I really just don't think that she's going to have, too much success getting it to the mat. And I could just see her kind of just getting fucked up for 25 minutes by Hill. Honestly, I think Hill knockout is pretty live. I do think she's going to put a pace and really fucking put some damage on Waterson.
Yeah, so I don't have a play on Hill. I mostly agree with you guys on the feed. I don't think it's particularly close. What I will say is, Hill got subbed 2 years ago by Random Marcos, and I went and deep dove all of the time she's been on her back and the time since. I don't think she's made many improvements on the ground. Now, she's got good takedown defense, and she can keep it standing. But if you actually, the thing is, go look at Waterson's fight with Jędrzejczyk. She attempts 9 takedowns in that fight. She only gets her down once, but Joanna is the best female defensive grappler in history, literally. So can't take too much from that. So it's I expect her to attempt takedowns here in pretty high volume. And my thinking is if she gets her down, she can probably get some top time. But like what C said, I do think if she gets on top of her, she's got a chance to really move into serious position and potentially sub her. So I jumped in on the sub line for about a half unit at plus 950 earlier in the week. It's kind of corrected itself now. I think it's plus 500 now.
Let me let you know on that. It's plus 600 right now.
Yeah, that might have some value to be honest. I think there's a real chance she gets it done.
Fucking hold on.
But anyway, yeah. I kind of think the line's right on Hill. I think there's enough liabilities in Waterson's or in Hill's bottom game that, if Waterson gets her down a couple times, she's got a really good shot to win this fight. But yeah, no money line play, small play on Waterson by submission. Lag, how about you?
Yeah, similar thoughts with you guys about Hill. I think she's obviously the much better striker on the feet here. It's just my concern is the level of competition that Hill's had in this late run compared to Waterson's, and the fact that she's never really been 5 rounds before. So I'm not saying she has bad cardio, but it's just kind of a huge question. But I do think that Angela Hill kind of rolls on the spot, and I kind of think that it's kind of binary in the sense that it's either a Hill decision or it's Waterson by sub. I don't really see how Michelle's going to be able to win a decision here, considering that her output drains a lot later in fights. So I don't know. My pick would be Hill by decision, but kind of staying away from it personally. I think it could be highly volatile. So
yeah,
yep.
Yeah.
That's I was actually so sorry. I'll add real quick, and I was actually looking. So if you want to hit those subs in different rounds, John, 3, 4, and 5 plus 3,800, 4,200, and 5,000.
That's not bad. That's I don't know how aggressive I'm trying to get on it, but I do like to play. Before we go, C is going to win everybody a Ferrari this week. C, hit him with the parlay that's hitting.
Yeah, the Ivy sub, Nelson round 1, Ottoman, the Zaitar guy round 1. That's hitting. If you want to get a little bit more aggressive, add Roberts inside the distance in there. If you want to get really fucking aggressive,
Bobby Green inside the distance.
yeah, if you want to get really fucking aggressive, take Bobby Green knockout. So you have 5 fucking ways there. Honestly, I'm pretty confident that all 5 of those are hitting. So you can honestly just basically be scamming FanDuel. You'll win the first parlay, the second, and the third parlay, and you'll be under like the minimum payments for each one or whatever the fuck that they'll pay out. So yeah, those are my parlays for this week.
Love it. Yeah. Anyway, guys, thanks for joining us. We're going to be, now that the NFL is back, we're going to be back to Wednesdays, and Quinn is apparently moving soon, so we should be in a regular 9 p.m. slot going forward. That'd be nice.
So to add real quick to that parlay, so Bobby Green, the inside the distance, that Kyle Nelson round 1, Zaitar KO round 1, and Ivy sub. I don't know what he said the 5th one was, but just those 4 are plus 605,960.
Yeah. So go get enough to get a Ferrari, boys. So go get it. Anyway, as usual, Steve dipped early to watch the Chiefs game. Go Magoat tonight. We'll be back next week to shit on Kazmat and hype up Cheryl Mearshart taking the Dragon's head. Anyway, though, thanks for tuning in, everybody. As usual, I'm your host, John Stargarian. You can find me on Twitter at MMFox, Lags at Lags_Pepper, and Luke at SWR_betting. Good luck this weekend, guys. Let's get it.